Hello and welcome back to the Flurry Sports Podcast. Let's take a second to exhale, everybody at home. Jake, you too. Let's debrief here. The voting is done. Everything we could possibly do is over. And now it's in the hands of Volume 1. And at this point, I've heard from a lot of people that have voted. I've heard from people who we didn't even ask to vote tell me that they voted just out of nowhere. And that's great. And I say all of this to say, if we don't win, I think there's some tomfoolery afoot. I think there's some hijinks and maybe some deceptive shit happening over at Volume 1. That's all I'm saying. And, who could possibly have the money to, swing votes? Oh, I don't know. Maybe a bank. Maybe, one of these religious entities that have podcasts that were nominated alongside of us. I don't know. All I'm saying is thank you for those who have voted. I think we have a good chance. I'm happy with the turnout. I'm happy with everything that has unraveled when we had ample time to get votes. I think that was cool. And now we wait. For how long? I don't know. It's like months, I think. But how are you feeling about it, Jake?
I think the biggest reveal we've had all season is that you banked through RCU. I haven't recovered from that yet. You slipped it in there. I think you're part of it.
I voted for them. They made me.
They told me I had to. It was part of my clause when I signed there. Listen, Jesus take the wheel. It's good. I think there's a couple things at play. I think we can always blame it on. We're not just running against ourselves, Zach. We are running against ourselves 4 times.
That is true. That some would say that's not a good strategy, but
And the one podcast that didn't join that phrase pissed about it. My dad's still but we've never been better. He's like, should we have got a nod? So I think there's a little bit of infighting. I think that's fair. I also think, it'd be really funny if this show and we won when we are the people show. We are the best show. We are not the most listened to Flurry Sports show.
True.
But it'd be a funny win because we need it more. I just love Lombardi sweeps right there. And we're like, nope, us. Mm-hmm. Vote for us.
That is true. That is true. I will say though, with the Playing Catch Up podcast, I like a snubbed Pete. Pete was something to prove. I feel like 2024 is going to be Pete's year. I can't wait to see. I want him to, Pete, if you're listening, maybe you have to take this message to him.
I'll have to.
I think at least once a month during the season, Pete should bring a new segment. And I'd like to see what he could do here.
I think that's fun. Wait, to this show or to Playing Catch Up?
I was thinking Playing Catch Up, but maybe this show as well.
Because his segment on this show is one of the best we've ever done. Where he's just ranting about how bad the Packers were in the 80s.
Yeah, and just bringing up Carlos Brown as if he stole something from him. I don't know.
And mentioning Heat of the Night, which no one's talked about in 40 years. So it's a specific rub, but I thank the people for listening. I think this is our time to shine, not just for that, Zach, but I think for sports podcasts in general. Okay. Because when I think of every sports podcast, I think they've had a bad week. I think the Kelseys in a bit of a decline.
Yeah. I mean, some would say it's going to hurt their listenership. I don't want to listen to a bunch of losers.
Especially if they're just going to whine about the refs, huh?
That's
How about
true.
You win the game?
Yeah. Stop blaming take ownership. You know what I mean? Take accountability.
What are you going to blame, Jason? What are you going to, how about that one? Huh? Just a big fat L. So down a little bit. Old man in the 3. No one liked JJ Redick to begin, and now he's shitting on the in-season tournament.
Yeah. That's a bad look. Can't be doing that.
Pardon my take. Is that the name of that one?
Yep. You're so irrelevant you can't even figure out the name of it.
So relevant, I can't remember the name. Also, not a great time for David Portnoy and co.
True. That's a good point, too.
So they're down a little bit. Those are your top 3 sports podcasts right there. You know what that means? We're like the alien. We're bursting out from within. I wore my name tag today just in case it's people's first time listening.
Great. That's helpful. That's very helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Possibly a tie-in to a segment later in the show, by the way.
Ooh, I hope
that
so.
You don't even know about. But yeah,
wait.
I mean, they give us an inch, we'll take at least 2 inches, Jake. That's what the old saying is. We are going to crawl our way up the podcast charts, much like Playing Catch Up Pod has also done in the baseball category. They said it couldn't be done, but inch by inch, they are fighting their way in this baseball offseason.
Has a movie ever been held up by one line more than any given Sunday in that fucking speech?
Dude,
you fight, you die for that inch.
God, the greatest moment in movie history. Is that what you're talking about? For the people at home who don't know this, I'm not even sure if we've talked about this. We've talked about various things from high school days, talked about football days.
I forgot about it. Yeah.
We listened to that speech every time before a game in the locker room. Our coach, by the way, Hall of Fame coach, like this is his like motivating tactic. He's like, he watched this movie. He's like, I got it. We're good. So we listened to it in the locker room before every fucking game. And just thinking about that speech gets me ready to go. I love that fucking scene. It's so good.
It was whiplash. I think you did it to me. Some fucking senior did this to me where we were like talking to somebody and it was like, I think it was you was like joking about it ahead of time. Might have been Hostreiter. Someone was like, oh, this speech, yada, yada. And then said something like that. Like, oh, here we go again. It started and I made a joke like, wow, this is dramatic. And someone was like, shut up. It was just like an immediate, like, oh, we're taking it serious. And I know it was you who told me to shut up. I don't know I don't know if it was you who also baited me into it. But
it sounds like something I would do, but I truly don't think I would have joked about this. This is the one thing I held sacred.
I think, honestly, shout out to a potential fan. I think it might have been Holsworth.
Oh, probably. Yeah, don't be playing around with any given Sunday. Like this is the greatest. Oh God, I need to watch that scene. Maybe that's just a fucking pod or a YouTube video at one point. Just watch my eyes, my pupils fucking dilate while I react to the scene. It's the greatest thing of all time.
The 6 inches in front of your face. It's for a not good movie. That speech does it. Okay.
Great.
Top 5 movies held up by one line, okay? Or one moment.
Ooh.
That I'm gonna put that at number 1.
Okay.
Okay, just because it's the one that made me think of it.
Sure.
I'm gonna go I'm gonna go number 5. I think a lot of them are in the same category. I think number 5, the last dodgeball fight from Dodgeball is the only good part of that movie.
No. That entire movie gold.
That's actually wrong. Same movie. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Once Patches O'Houlihan dies, the movie's kind of dead. Yeah.
I disagree. That is one of my favorite movies. It's so good.
That's one. Number 4, Zoolander, the gasoline scene.
Okay. I sense a theme so far. What's the next one?
Yeah, I think
is it Tropic Thunder or what is it?
They're all kind of in there. Tropic Thunder's good the whole time. I can't say shit about Tropic Thunder.
Okay.
But we're gonna put it in there.
Meet the Fockers. How about that one? I got nipples. Can you milk me? Is that one?
No, I got one for you. Dirty Dancing. It's just nobody puts baby in the corner.
Never seen it, so I agree. Sure.
That's all. Does the movie even exist before Time of My Life? I don't know. I think it's just that. And then number 2, how mad can I make you? Number 2. Now we're gonna go this one. Number 2, we're gonna go Waterboy. and it's 100%. It's just water sucks. It's the
Oh,
only. Yeah,
that's not true.
it's all dumb. It's all dumb. Besides, my mama is a nice lady.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Adam Sandler movie was all dumb. Yeah, fucking. That's the point.
That's the only scene that holds it up. That's the only scene that holds it up.
I'll take it. I disagree.
Can I sub it out with a real take, a real opinion? I believe.
Oh, if you say the movie, I was hoping you wouldn't say. I might end the show. Go
Elf.
ahead. Oh no, that's fine. Whatever.
Elf snowball fight.
That's the only good part. I like the movie, but I'm fine with that. I thought you were going to say something Remember the Titans related, and I was going to walk off the show.
What are you doing, Zach? We ended racism with that movie.
I know. And I was reminded every single year in a new social studies class about it.
No, I'm not going to say anything bad about Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans is good start to finish.
Of course it is. Yeah.
No, especially because there's at least two moments that hold it up. You have to have left side, strong side on there.
Of course. Great
and
moment.
You have to have the scene where assistant coach threatens a ref.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'll take you all with me. And then my favorite out of context, like the players don't know that's happening. He goes to the sidelines and he yells, "Let there be no doubt." What does that mean? What a fun thing to yell at your sideline.
That's true. This is going to take some research. This is a segment for another day. I want things happen. It can be a movie or real sports. Like someone yells out something that makes absolutely no sense out of context. And even if you weren't in the moment, if you weren't in the team, if you're just a fan watching, it still made no sense. But everybody on that sideline fucking knew it. And maybe that ties us into Patrick Mahomes losing his fucking mind, because there's so many people just burying Mahomes. Like, this guy's a baby. He needs to grow up. Like, no, he doesn't. Everybody who needs to get it gets it. I'm so upset. It's the same kind of thing when you listen to an athlete just repeat something over and over and over when they're screaming it.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, you're like, okay, bud, like let's relax a little bit. But if you're in that moment, you get it. And we need to get a compilation of that. But Jake, let's talk about the Chiefs moment. A lot happened.
So basically what happened is this, and this is my favorite part about it, because it's almost so boring that it, like, that's why people are mad, is like, stop talking about it. What a boring ass rule. Because it all comes down, Chiefs make this big comeback. I believe at one point they're down 17-3 against the Bills.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. I believe they were down 2 scores at one point. They're coming back. Chance to take the lead in a game where they were trailing 17-20. Wide receiver critically lines up on the line of scrimmage. Seen a lot of people being like, he's offsides, which was not the ruling. That's my favorite thing. Like, him leaning over the line was basically the issue, and that was not the case. He is supposed to look over to the ref, get confirmation that he's in the right spot, and go from that. And the big hullabaloo is no warning, no nothing, flag, ends the game.
Right.
Essentially. And Patrick Mahomes' big thing isn't that it was called or that it was an issue. His big issue is, part of that rule is that the receiver is supposed to check with the official and do that. And the receiver said they did that and instead received a flag. So basically he's mad that it was not, he's claiming they weren't warned about it at all in the game. And then in this big moment, rather than doing what they are supposed to do by rule, which is give them a heads up that they're not in the right spot or give them a warning, they just immediately flag them. Yep.
And if you check out the Flurry Sports YouTube channel, I actually did just post a short of a different angle, and Kadarius Toney does check with the ref. But it looks like he didn't really, he kind of pointed at the ref and then looked away. Like, he kind of checked, but kind of didn't check. But regardless though, like, the refs needs to, supposedly this is what they're saying. Like, yes, we will give a warning unless it's egregious. And in this case, supposedly it was so egregious that they had to call it. And it makes no sense. It doesn't really make sense. Like, people don't want to be on the line. Like, a receiver isn't wanting to be further up, by the way. That doesn't give him an advantage. He wants to be further back, so there's separation. So that's why it makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense. He's not going for an advantage. You're punishing. Basically, the refs are saying he was so wrong that we needed to punish him for it, which I think is wild in itself, because imagine that with any other rule of like, well, we wouldn't normally call it, but he was so off. He was just so different that we had to throw it. That's a weird standard. Two, it's literally built in that he points at him. And I've heard people all day be like, Tony should have double checked with the official. He should have really looked at him. And it's like, what? That's not what he does on any. He should have, if he had known he was that offside, he wouldn't have been there.
He should have asked, are you sure? Yes, you're onside. Are you sure? Promise?
Like, because I've heard that, like, because that's not what you're saying, but people were like, well, he should have waited to see the official, which is not how that. Watch any receiver do that on a play. That's what they do. They point, because it's the checking that is required of them.
Right.
So I for sure think this rule needs clarification, because I think how it's being called, especially this year, is not what the players are understanding. So I hear that, and like, if the NFL wanted this to be more strict, one, I would, to your point, say, why? Like, what is this doing to the game that they're lining up? Like, I don't understand. Like, just help them get in the right spot.
Yeah. For the people who don't know, they point to the ref. The ref will usually, if they're on the where they're supposed to be, on the line, off the line, wherever they're supposed to be, a lot of times the ref's just not going to say anything, or they'll like nod. Like, they're not really going to say anything. They're just going to make note. They're going to yell at you or tell you after the snap, which is what they're supposed to do. You were off that time. Make sure, double check with me the next time. That's all it is. It's like, if there is something to be corrected, they'll correct it. But this ref doesn't do anything. Tony kind of points at him, looks away quickly. So you could say Tony didn't really check, whatever. I watched the ref. The ref did absolutely nothing either. So I don't really understand what's going on.
But that's good clarification for people who don't know the rule or aren't that into this part of football. I think it could be fair to be like, well, isn't it up to the player? This rule is not. That's not the system of this rule. Is the player has to get it right, and if not, it's a penalty. That's not how they call it. It literally is a system of, you check with the ref and they tell you it's not a penalty call. And I think what's clear from Mahomes' reaction and Andy Reid's reaction, which I feel like less people are talking about, is they would have done it right had they known this was on the line. And I think to do that is bad. I also think I'm mad at the ref. I'm more mad at the head umpire. Like, when the crew chief, when they all come together and talk about it, tell him to swallow his fucking whistle. Like, if he wants to call it because it's so bad, cool. Tell him to give him a fucking warning. Like, what do we do? Like, and maybe it's still on the guy who calls it, but six other refs come into that thing. And I think the NFL and more sports should just have it where it's like, I think the crew chief's job should be like, is this call going to cost us the game? Yes. Is this a call that like needs to happen right now? No. And that's the difference to me. Like, I don't think you have to totally swallow your whistle, but to your point, what happens if you let them play? Nothing. It doesn't benefit the Chiefs at all. And as much as was any freaking Bills fan after the game going to see this lineup and be like, he was on the line? No one. No one was going to even notice unless the ref did something.
Right. And I understand once they meet, after the guy throws the flag or whatever, I understand letting it stand just because then correcting it after throwing a flag looks bad. But still, like, it's the whole time and place thing. I don't remember if I talked about it on this show last week or whatever the fuck it was. It must have been maybe Lombardi, but it's every single week. It's a game that comes down to the last minute, and there's a play or a call from the ref that changes the entire game. It's every single week, and at some point, you have to have the situational awareness to be like, okay, we're in the final 2 minutes, and we are just going to let shit go. And you know, if there's a pass interference, we'll call the pass interference. If there's somebody who's almost obviously doing a penalty to essentially save the play because they're beat, that's when you call shit. But if it's an offsides, if it's a slight false start, if it's anything like that, it's just so dumb. This is what ruins the game for me. It's just dumb.
That's fair. And there's a line, right? Like the Saints play where the D-back tackles the wide receiver and we get challenges to pass interferences for a year. That's too far. Like call obvious fouls. I think that's fair. I also think to eagle-eyed listeners, that doesn't make sense. To eagle-eared listeners, yes, I am the guy who during March Madness gets pissed when suddenly you can stab somebody in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And nobody cares. Because that is like, what are we doing? Well, why can all of a sudden, what time limit hits where I can just mug somebody? But I think there's a line of do your job. And that's why I think, like, I don't know if because it is spur of the moment. So, like, that ref in that moment was like, I'm going to throw my flag. I think it's got to be on someone in that crew's job to, especially in football where they pick flags up all the time.
Yeah.
I think that should be more okay to be like, hey, fine call, not right now. Like, you know?
Well, it's also, I mean, one, we need to just start having some sort of consistency because, like, not only is there no consistency between the ref groupings, but then if you can't have inconsistency within one actual game either, that's stupid. But, like, this specific call, like, for, again, the people who don't really know football that much, this is such a rare call. Like, there's probably been single-digit offsides by a wide receiver this year. And again, it's because there's no advantage. Like, they're not going to call it because there's no advantage to the receiver. If there's a D-end standing in the same place, offsides by that amount, that gives them an obvious advantage because they're further across the line. They're closer to the quarterback. They're closer to the lineman that they have to beat. So the lineman has less time to react. That gives them an advantage. When the receiver is closer to the D-back, it gives the D-back a bigger advantage. And that's why refs usually don't call it, except for in this situation, I suppose. I don't know. But I mean, truthfully, the only way, if we're going to put on the I don't think so conspiracy glasses here, like, the NFL wants the Bills to be in the playoffs because they're a big team, popular team. You need to have as many superstar quarterbacks in the playoffs as possible. We're dwindling with those superstar quarterbacks because of injuries and retirements and people just playing poorly. Josh Allen, say whatever you want about him. He's a superstar, and the NFL really needs him in the playoffs over Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah. That's the underlining thing here for me is suddenly now the Bills are back in the hunt. They being 6-6 before this is ridiculous, by the way. Sean McDermott, notable 9/11 conspiracist.
I mean, we could talk about that too, because I have a bigger problem with that, Jake.
Well, I think we should. I also, just one final bow on in case someone's kind of hinging on this. I will say they pointed out that this season that call has been called about 10 or 11 times now. But last year was only called 2, and it was called none the year before that. So, yes, it's being called, but one, it's clearly not being emphasized enough with teams. You can't just start calling something. And two, to a point you made, even if it was a point of emphasis, why? Why is this a rule? This really feels like some nerdy fucking ref was like, we never called this. Should we call this more? I feel like we could call this more. Dumb. Just because you're missing it doesn't mean you should get it more. So I think that's dumb. I think we should talk about Shawnee jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams.
For the people who missed the story, and there's a big deep dive going into the Bills organization by someone who has been kicked out of the Bills organization, a media member. That's the first thing you should know. But there's a story from 2019 that was been surfaced this week from Sean McDermott motivating the boys in the only way he knew how, which is talking about how the hijackers in 9/11 executed their communications and everything so perfectly to get the job done. And that's how his team needed to act. And maybe he should have used a different analogy. Maybe there's a better example he could have used other than, terrorists that, had one of the biggest acts of terrorism that we've seen in a long time. However, I mean, inexcusable. He says that as well. And the important point that people are leaving out, in my opinion, is that he apologized in 2019. This has been done.
Yeah.
This is done. Let's resurface it. Because, hey, we went through a lot with COVID. I just want to make sure this isn't swept under the rug. Let's bury McDermott one more time. That's essentially what this person's doing.
And waiting for a time where we're all out on McDermott anyway.
Right. Yeah. Which is dumb. But yeah, share your point, and then I'm going to share my biggest issue with it.
I was just going to say my big point with it is I think it's very disingenuous of this to be brought up in a way where all the talk of it is, can you believe this hasn't been addressed? When it very clearly has been. I also think my big takeaway with it is it's clearly bad and was shared with the intent of, doesn't this guy think 9/11 was a good thing? When that's not what he said. What he said was terrible. Hear me when I say that. It was bad. And all the reporting on it was, and this guy likes terrorism. And it's like, no, that's not what he said. He made the world's cruelest and dumbest metaphor and has since been held accountable for that. Now, if he had written an article saying this was a thing that happened, here's how he handled it, it's an example of bad decision making that I think lines with what we're seeing now. That was not the article. The article was, here's the thing no one knows about Sean McDermott. And I think that's shitty reporting. I also think I think he planned to release it this week, and then they get buried by the Chiefs, and maybe you can get him fired this week. And they beat the Chiefs, and that doesn't happen. So,
this would be very, very different if the outcome of that game was different. It'd be very loud, very vocal.
But the refs agreed with him.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Refs love the metaphor.
This was clearly a hit piece. It's just weird. It's odd. It's gross. I don't like it. But Jake, when there's such a big hit piece or a big fluff piece or big anything coming out, it's usually to hide something, right? We are controlling the narrative. Let's bury the thing we don't want out, and let's all regroup here, and let's all talk about a guy we haven't spoken about in a while. He's been quiet. What the fuck's he been up to?
Oh no,
Von Miller.
He's back. What's he up to?
That's great. You don't know what he's up to. What has Von Miller been up to? Do you not know?
I don't know. I don't know at all.
Great. He has domestic violence charges against his girlfriend or his wife, mother of his kids. Happened the exact same time. And we're like, let's ignore it. And he's playing. He was in the game, by the way. He was standing next to Kadarius Toney.
How bad, I will say, maybe the NFL wanted the Bills in the playoffs. Maybe. But also they're pissed because they're like, the Kelce's one job is to brush this shit under the rug. They can't keep losing or we're going to lose our – that report came out and no one talked about how the NFL internally was like, oh, my God, it's so much easier to have all these scandals with the Kelce's around. Well, it goes without saying, if you've listened to the show, this opinion shouldn't surprise you. Fuck that. I don't think he should be in the league. I think we've had plenty of conversations on the show before. I think second chances, all that shit, cool. when it's ongoing and unaddressed, I think it's inexcusable that he's playing football. I also think what a shame that he's on our merch.
True. I mean, this is Broncos Von Billy. This is different. This one though, he's a different guy back then. But yeah, he did a Tyreek Hill. He supposedly assaulted his pregnant wife, girlfriend, whatever. Was put on a $5,000 bond. Was released. Fine. The Bills have addressed this, and again, they had to address multiple things this week. So that's why it's just been buried. And I'm actually looking at an article from the Washington Post, and the way Washington Post does it too, they tied a nice little bow at the end talking about the McDermott controversy. So they even buried this fucking story in an article that's supposed to only be about it. But essentially, some people, the two people out there who knew about this story, were asking if Von Miller would be playing in this game. And then once they found out they did, asking why. Why isn't the Bills punishing him? Why isn't the NFL punishing him? General manager Bean for the Bills, who I like a lot, and I think he's kind of put in a shitty situation here anyway. But he essentially just said he wants to wait for the legal process to play out, and if there's no charges filed, then they're not going to be, doing any punishments. Which I just don't. It's hard, right? Like, do you punish someone for something that they're not proven guilty of, essentially?
I think it is hard. And so for folks who haven't heard us have the full conversation, know that it comes with this context. I think it's hard. I think this is why it's so important that leagues have their own systems of punishment, because I don't think it's realistic to ask the Bills GM to do that. I don't think that's a fair spot to put him in, because then he has to answer to his teammates and things. I think the league needs clear codes, because that's been the league's policy, is if there's no criminal charges, go against that. And I will say, what would be great is if our legal system made these charges easier to prove. Like, that's the big out there piece, is like, if you haven't followed any of these cases, I work on a university campus, so I have to all the time. These are incredibly hard to prove in court. So almost always they end in civil court. And that would be my argument is, and I know that gets tricky, and you can have a different opinion on this. That's totally okay, because it's hard. I think if this ends up in civil court and there are deals made and like basically admissions of guilt, I think, like, if you were an employer at a job like that's not the NFL, I think that would be a big issue. I also think it's very telling in a league that just doesn't have a lot of female employees, that it's like, because if you were at a fucking bakery or wherever you worked, it'd be like, they'd come in and Susie be like, hey, what the hell? Vaughn's here.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what Vaughn just did?
No, did you hear what McDermott did?
Yeah. McDermott thinks the Terrors had good organization skills. Yeah. So I think 2 years ago. So I think it is tricky. People will disagree on this, so I don't know if this is a hot button to bring up. I like baseball system where it is that, like, baseball is basically like, yeah, if there's admission of guilt in any way, we are going to just indefinitely suspend you. And then teams, and basically they have a 1-year waiting period, and they punish the player for being in that bout. Trevor Bauer is the famous example of it. And he was pissed. And my favorite thing about Trevor Bauer is now he's on a crusade of like, hey, everybody, that lady who said allegedly that I gagged her up and left her overnight or whatever, it was consensual. Are you going to apologize? And everyone went, well, there were 5 women, Trevor, allegedly. And this is one of them. She's the only one who was in that phone. He's like, no, but she was wrong. Told you. And so that's been funny to me. And the league just gave him like a 2-year suspension. And again, do I think 2 years is enough? I don't know. That's where it gets really tough. Like, what's the time you put on it? I have no idea. I hope he never pitches again. That's my personal hope. But I think the league needs something in place, because what you have now is, this is tricky because it's one incident. And as we've seen with other cases, it's marital. So like, who knows what charges will be pressed and things. there's nothing stopping Deshaun Watson from playing. Like, he was rewarded with guaranteed money for his scan. Like, so I think the league needs something there. That's my like bare minimum take. I also think for baseball, it's helped them with cases like freaking Wander Franco Jr., who this year came out allegedly dating underage people. So that, by the way, nothing official on that. They just put him what they should have done with the commissioner's exemption list that they never use in the NFL. So I think that's gross. I don't know.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. Like, in the short term, like, this is exactly what the commissioner's exempt list was created for. Like, let's put them on this. It gets them off of an active roster. They don't get paid, or they do get paid. You know, when they're in limbo, this is what happens. And that's what happened with Deshaun Watson when he was in Houston. Like, he was on the commissioner's exempt list. Everything was fine there. So I don't know. I think I agree with you where it's like, if there's an admission of guilt, Deshaun Watson, we can just use that case. Like, they went to a civil court, there was deals made, and he was suspended. Was he suspended long enough? You could argue that. The whole thing with the NFL though versus baseball, like, you can hold a player out for baseball, you can hold a player out for 2 years for baseball, and their careers are so much longer. Let's just say,
and their money's guaranteed.
That's true. That's actually a huge point. Let's say this was a running back. Let's say this was Ray Rice and he didn't knock that chick's ass out in the elevator.
On camera,
let's just say, let's say maybe there was a gray area. We didn't know. But we do this one. We caught Ray. But let's just say they are a 22-year-old second-year running back, and we put them on 2 years, like an exempt list. They come back and we're like, you're old. You're done. Like, the NFL is such a short window, which fucking screws everything up.
And it's hard when the NFL is so unkind to its players. So it makes it seem like then this is like unfair, unkind. So because that's the whole piece, is then when Ray Rice got back, that's fair. There was like a feeling of like, shouldn't he get another chance? And I kind of felt that. And it's like, should he? I don't know. So it's really tough. And I get that no one wants to, like, by the way, I wouldn't take that job if they were like, okay, you be the decider. I wouldn't want it. So I get it. But the Ray Rice point is a good point of, I think what's more ugly and apparent is it's not the evidence that matters to the NFL. It is how open to the public is that evidence. Because they saw the Ray Rice tape before we did. And then they were like, you're right. They're like, whoa. The Zeke Elliott stuff. Same thing happened. So I like, it's been enough times with that and Alden Smith and different things where it's like, I can name a lot of players, but it's just been enough where they don't care about like numbers or evidence. They care about the publicity of it. Because if they cared about numbers or evidence, I mean, I'll shit on myself because I have this guy's jersey still hanging up in my room at home. Big Ben played an awful long time with an awful lot of allegations and a lot of settlements. A different era, pre-Cosby. But
he found God now, though.
Well, good. So did all those ladies. Jesus. I mean, it was it's been a brutal time for the NFL. I think that's wild that they're kind of like putting that under the radar, but at the same time, that's very NFL. But I guess to take your big point away, I don't know if I look at that as like the GM's fault. Like,
no, for sure not. No,
like I think he's going to get a lot of heat, and I don't know if that's right there. Same as like the coach of like, you started him. Yeah, he's active. Like, I don't know. Maybe someone should take a stand. I guess you could have that opinion, and that would make sense. But I think, okay, you sit him one game. Now?
True. The thing is with this situation that's unlike some of the others, though. No one's taking a stand. No one knows this happened.
True.
It's not a Deshaun Watson thing where everyone's in outrage. It's Von Miller played, and we're like, yeah, why? Did he do something? Yeah, he did, actually. Maybe, allegedly.
Well, I know. I will say I'm a little worried. We're getting in an era of NFL where these scandals are getting less covered. because like, or is it just maybe not as newsworthy because like that wasn't talked about. Like I think basically all of the like no one's talking about the fact that like all the racism lawsuits, like those just got swept under the rug. I just think we're in a very pro NFL era right now.
I'll give you another one. Let me find exactly what he was
Alvin
arrested
Kamara.
for.
That was the other one I was thinking of. Alvin Kamara, Jimmy Grant. Wait, no, that's not right. Who am I thinking? Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham had. Well, he was arrested, but he was all.
For sure. I'm not saying the NFL should have done anything there, but no coverage. Just like weirdly nothing.
Okay, so great. This one happened November 14th, so less than a month ago. And the big news about this player is that they came back from injury and they're playing again, which is good. No one knows this happened. And in fact, this came out basically the week they came back. So it should have been talked about. Zay Jones, wide receiver for the Jaguars, again, assaulted the mother of his child. And he's playing. Good to go. It's a go. He's clear from injury. Great. Perfect. Just in time. Like, that's the story with him. But not the fact that he was arrested. And this one sounds a little bit even more, like, obvious. So
yeah. And listen, I know it's hard to cover and talk about this stuff all the time because we do it. And I know it's hard to do that when it doesn't seem like the NFL is going to do anything. They'll never do anything unless we talk about it all the time. So I think that piece should be there. I think this sucks. I also, it just made me randomly mad. This in a year where the NFL has for sure gained more female supporters than any year in their past. And it's like, they don't care. Like, that's frustrating. And it's not surprising. I'm not like surprised by it. I'm starting to sound like Dan fucking Lebitard. I don't know if this big multi-million-dollar organization, billionaire organization should care. But they don't. And I'm just frustrated by it. I'm frustrated that like women come in, don't look at the news. Look at me. Don't, don't shake anybody's hand. I don't know. And I'm going to stamp a big old alleged on everything, all this stuff is ongoing. I get it. And I don't know. I just think it sucks. Be kind of funny if Taylor just put him on blast. I'd love like a big interview and she was just like, hey, you all hit women a lot. I'll be kind of, I don't know if that gets shit done.
I'd like to make a pitch to Taylor Swift. I know you're listening.
She's really going to listen to you. You've been so kind to her in the past.
Hey, we've had our differences, but I think, let's come together with something we both understand. And that's making money and making content, which I know is all what you care about. I think it'd be fantastic content if we just like talk through some of the basic news stories from the NFL with Taylor Swift. I would love to let her know, because I'm guessing she doesn't know about this. I would love to break down the Deshaun Watson story with her and air it on NFL Network. Let me do it. I think that'd be very fun. Good.
I think I think it would be really funny. I think it's a little bit what it is a little bit though. Anytime it would be very Taylor Swift for it to come out of like, can you believe Taylor Swift cheers for the NFL with this history of domestic abuse? It is very that to be like, shouldn't Taylor be a champion for all rights and everything she does always is always funny to me. Like, what was it the one day? It was like her. I think it was her and David Portnoy like had a picture and someone was like, oh, it's her and Jackson Mahomes. They were like in the same booth and they were like, can you believe she would sit next to Jackson Mahomes? And it's like, she didn't pick it, guys. They told her what booth to sit in. I don't know. So it's a little bit of that, but that'd be a good show. You know what more than Taylor, I would die for you to do that with Travis.
To break it, like,
or Jason.
Break it down.
What do they think of that shit? Like, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they never, not just them. Not a them thing. I love their podcast. None of those NFL players. Can I get one NFL player out here who's like, hey, hit a woman? Shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think, like, we can't even dunk on Deshaun. Like, we're still in that, like, what are we doing? Ray Rice? That one's on film. Can we talk about Ray?
That was insane. The first time I saw that, like, I almost remember where I was. I remember from like a top-down perspective. It was odd.
First time I told my dad, not to put him on blast because he didn't doubt, but I was like, "Did you hear the thing with Ray Rice today? He hit that lady," and he was like, "Well, they don't know for sure yet." And I'm like, "No, Dad, a bit. He hit that lady." Like he's like, "Whoa, he hit that lady." I was like, "Yeah, for sure."
Sure did.
Like, got her.
The one player I think I could see because he has a new podcast that he just started, which I think is really good as well. Don't remember the name, so no. Max Crosby for the Raiders.
Yes, yeah,
he's awesome. I could see him starting to be a little more vocal about that shit, and I think he would. So that's the spot. That's the person I have an eye on. And honestly, maybe I shouldn't say that because he might be our biggest competition for #1 sports podcast. Because rest in peace, New Heights. I mean, we've seen all of these as you talked about before. But I do know we have the strength, Jake, of us two, and maybe a happy Viking behind us. Let's talk about our sponsor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about drinkhappyviking.com/flurry. You're welcome. We shortened it for you. Talked about it last week. Breakfast reinvented, Jake. You get 2 scoops. It's a protein powder. It can be a meal replacement. It can just be a recovery thing. It's got 60 plus superfoods in it, created by Venus Williams. I know Claire actually purchased through our code, and Claire's an intelligent woman. Wouldn't you all like to be intelligent women as well? Please go do so. drinkhappyviking.com/flurry. You get 10% off if you subscribe. You get even more % off. You get free shipping. You get 3 free chocolate flavors as well. There's chocolate, there's iced coffee, strawberry smoothie, Greener colada. You got a vanilla. We got cookies and cream. So much more. Helps build lean muscle, helps brain power, sustained energy, immune support, hair, skin, nails, digestive health, daily recovery, all that kind of stuff. It's got plant protein in there. Omega-3s, amino acids. It really is like the perfect breakfast if you want to use it as that. I use it as a meal replacement, just mixing it with some almond milk. Very, very good. Like I said, created by Venus Williams. It's the perfect way to start your day to get all those superfoods. And even Kevin Durant supports it. Kevin Durant says no one understands the nutritional space like a professional athlete, and Happy Viking is proof in the product form. I'm sure Kevin Durant said that himself. He sounds like something he would say. And there's also something here from Kevin from Chicago, right next to Kevin Durant.
Oh, good.
The only protein powder I found that doesn't upset my stomach. Kevin sounds like a little bitch, but you know who isn't a little bitch? You. So definitely go to drinkhappyviking.com/flurry, 10% off. Support us. And truthfully, we don't do a bunch of sponsors on this show because truthfully, I've actually declined some. Like, I like to use or to promote products that 1, I've tried, and 2, that I like. I've tried some shit that's terrible. And I'm letting you know, I haven't advertised it to you guys. Drink
Arby's.
No, not Arby's. Arby's.
I love Arby's. You love Arby's. It's so funny.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Arby's is probably like a solid 5, but they're always a 5, and that's what I respect about them. But Happy Viking, drinkhappyviking.com/flurry. I talked about them last week in terms of I didn't know what the promo code was going to be. I didn't know what the URL specifically was going to be. And I'm telling you, it's drinkhappyviking.com/flurry. Promo code is flurry. And that's because they've worked with me and they've been super cool. They've supported the show. They get what we do, which I think is very, very different. Like, we are one of their We're one of their first like non-professional athlete sponsors or sponsees, I guess, which is it's weird. Venus, come on the show. I got questions. But I just want to, I'm sharing with you guys stuff that I like, and by people who actually like us, work with us, and are cool. So please show your support to them and to us. You should support the show by buying through the promo code Flurry. Go get it. Start your day off right.
Got it last week. Claire and I did. We got our triple chocolate. It. It's really good. I think next time we might get a different one because it's But this is a good, I shared this for a reason. It's sweet, like really sweet, like a good sweet. Like for us, we're probably going to have it as its own drink. So I think we're going to experiment with some of the other more fruity flavors.
Yeah.
But if you like it in your coffee or like in other pieces, like I think the triple chocolate was good.
Yeah.
And what a good deal. So please support the show there. I'll reward that with this story of Arby's. One time, why did they do this? One time I ordered 2 sandwiches. I've ordered 2 sandwiches. They could see me in the car ordering, and I said 2 half roast beef sandwiches. And instead, they said, we thought you wanted a double. So I was like, oh, okay, 1 double. Check the bag, 2 doubles. They gave me 2 1-pound roast beef sandwiches. What kind of animal am I?
Hey, that's Arby's, baby. Like they load you. They got the meats. Have you heard? And they gave them to you.
Trying to make me a literal happy Viking. What are we doing? Some Squidward math. It's going to go right to your thighs, and you're going to explode. I still not over that. I was like, who? Listen to me. Who wants that?
Hey, maybe breakfast the next morning. Why not? Start your day off right with have a pound of Arby's roast beef, wash it down with a Happy Viking shake, and away you go.
Then go for a marathon. You're going to have to. Zach, going to be a shorter episode for me because I got work to go to. But I've got one sports thing I really want to get your opinion on.
Perfect.
Shohei Ohtani, our boy, come on the show, Shohei.
Learn English, but then yes.
Or bring your Stephen A. Or bring your translator. You know, that'd be fun. I'd just interview Shohei's translator.
Great content.
Great content. Well, everything he says, I'm just going to credit to Shohei. But by the way, great content. I'll take anything we get. One step closer to Shohei. That's true, especially because Zach, he signed over the weekend. He's a Los Angeles Dodger, so he's not moving anywhere.
Okay. I believe you said that.
He signed a 10-year, $700 million guaranteed deal. He is now worth more money than the Arizona Coyotes. If he were to take that annual $70 million pay, $70 million every year for 10 years, he would be paid more than 8 MLB teams' average annual salary for their whole teams. Go Brewers. They're one of them. They pay less than $70 million a year. And Zach, craziest of all, which I want to get your opinion on, he was adamant in his public statement that because he wants to win and wants to play with a lot of good talent when he's winning, on average, he's deferring 68 of his $70 annual million. What that actually looks like, don't know. It can't literally be he's going to get $2 million every year, because then he'd be getting paid for 450 years. So, but that was the report that came out, was on average, it would be that percentage of deferment. So what that could mean, some people have speculated, is are there some years where he basically gets just league minimum, and then he could get paid for the most recent throwout was, does he get a Bobby Bonilla day basically, but he gets $30 million a year, and then for the next 30 years he also gets $30 million a year, which is nuts. But the Dodgers happy to go through with it because money tomorrow is worth less than money today, as Jeff Passan put it. So with inflation and everything else, that'll be fine. But he's going to be, and by the way, I would do maybe the same thing because I'm going to be rich for the rest of my goddamn life. Might as well give it to me in, nice little annual paychecks. So the deferment plan is going to be crazy. People are going to be surprised. They said the average deferment's probably going to land south of $50 million. So he could make $40 million a year or something like that, and then still when he retires. But I mean, if he retired at that pace, he could make $1 million a year for the next 80 years or something. So it's fucking crazy stuff that they're talking about right now. What do you think of all that? Would you defer?
No, I'm not dumbass. Like,
the 6 inches in front of your face, Zach. It's all that matters. He's trying to win a fucking post.
Everyone listening at home, go and open a sportsbook account and bet the Dodgers to miss the playoffs. Shohei Ohtani is a perpetual loser. That's the only thing we know about him. All we know is that he doesn't win games. And maybe the fact that he's not pitching this year will help the Dodgers out. But at this current point, congratulations, Dodgers. You're throwing away. You might as well pay it all in a lump sum this year, because who the fuck cares? Like, they're gonna lose. Great. And by the way, I hope the Angels I hope the Angels go on a run now.
Hope so. They picked like the most likable manager in the league, Ron Washington.
Oh, really? Okay.
I didn't know the poster boy of why aren't we hiring more black managers? Everyone couldn't imagine why he wasn't getting a job for years. They finally hired him. So how likable can we get? So I think things could be turning around. But the real wrinkle, Zach, I want to get your opinion on. Friday, you before the show were like, oh my God, was there any news on this? Friday, Zach, internet sleuths were tipped off. Shohei Ohtani, he's not staying in Los Angeles or the West Coast. Where's he going? Toronto. Why is it, Zach? Ooh, well, he saw a girl who lived there once. We think they're dating. She used to live in Japan, but now she lives in Toronto. Ooh, but Zach, that couldn't be, because if he was going to go to Toronto today, wouldn't he have to fly there? Well, Zach, the last 3 times he flew, but not before that, he flew in a certain type of airplane. That airplane leaving from Los Angeles that day, and also going many other locations. But you know where else it's going, Zach?
Where's that?
Toronto. The internet sleuths get online. A writer for the Los Angeles Dodgers Times, my favorite break ever, says, we're not getting him. He's going to Toronto. Which, did he collude? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. So news breaks. Everyone's like, oh my God, he's a fucking Blue Jay, which I'm assuming Shohei went, ew. I don't know. Like, that's my only assumption is, what kind of dumb break is that? I have to be a Canadian?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe Toronto was close to getting him, and then someone's like, oh, Blue Jays are getting him. And then he's like, you leaked it? No. And then he saw that one Los Angeles Dodgers report saying we're not getting him, and said, you know what? Bet you did get me.
I think that's it. I like to think someone was like, no, that can't be true. And then they did that fucking plane tracker thing. Anytime planes are involved in the news story, I love it. It's so funny. Yeah. Wait a minute. His plane was where? I think we've been getting that a lot with Taylor. Taylor was getting that when she was going to different stadiums. It was sighted over Denver. It's flying in.
We had that when the Aaron Rodgers situation was going on. Like, that was tracked the entire time. That was insane. I'm surprised that the internet was wrong. I enjoy citing a girlfriend in a city, and that's why he has to play there. It's a baseball player.
Considering that that was true, he's never home. Considering if that was true, he already doesn't live there. I mean, I guess it would be moving to be with her. That's the whole argument. It's like, okay, I guess it'd be there. I like the idea that with $700 million, she wouldn't come live with him.
Yeah.
I hear you, Shohei, but I don't know. Toronto, it's got a certain charm to it. I don't know. It was really funny. And then my favorite bad reaction to it, someone was like, whoever thought Toronto could get him? So stupid. How were they going to afford to get him? First off, they're one of the only professional sports teams. They're owned by a publicly traded company. They're fine. Really? They could 100%. They're owned by a publicly traded company. They're also Canada's only fucking baseball team. They could afford
it.
By the sheer power of their Canadians. They fucking, he's on TV screens for a whole country. So that would have been awesome. I would have wanted him to play for Canada in the next Olympics instead of Japan.
Yeah,
that would have been fun.
Yeah. I mean, that could have been in the contract for sure. That would have been awesome. That
Maybe
should have been the fucking Dodger one. You're American now. Sorry.
You at least have to play for Team Puerto Rico.
You can keep the name Shohei, but you got to change your last name to something more American, like O Johnson. Make it Irish. That's fine. You can keep the O.
That's very American. Have you tried making it Irish? That is true. Yeah. But I don't know, this whole dumb thing. And then I had to listen to reporters being like, well, I wish Shohei had said something to the press sooner. What were we supposed to talk about this whole time? I don't know. How about some fucking other news? How about we anything else? I don't know. The Brewers lost their manager to a rival club, and I didn't hear about it for like a day. What are we doing? I don't know. The only sport that's like, they have literally no off season. Like, right. And the only sport that's like, what do we talk about? I don't know. NFL's golf 7 months of the year. Yeah. And I have to listen. I have to listen to everything except their scandals. Dan Orlovsky in fucking April told me why every quarterback was underrated.
Yeah. And by the way, he's going on his victory lap for the 2 he got right now too. He does great stuff. He's got to figure it out.
Absolutely.
But I mean, thank you for everybody listening. This is the end of this week's show.
Yes.
Little teaser for next week. We'll take a deep dive into the NBA in-season tournament, which has concluded, as everybody knows. Everybody knows what the final result was. Everyone watched it, I'm sure. We did talk about how LeBron was going to win this cup because he likes those accolades. Surprise, surprise. But we'll break down the NBA's all-tournament team. We'll talk about the official tournament team. And we got some more cool stuff next week. So we will see you then. Goodbye.
Peace.